Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unraveling a deeply chilling, real-life mystery that really blurs that line between hard science and the downright supernatural. We're looking at the life and the incredibly controversial, totally unsolved death of Gaurav Tiwari. He was, without a doubt, India's most famous paranormal investigator, a guy whose intense, unwavering dedication to explaining the unexplainable literally led to a terrifying tragedy.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this quote you're seeing, this is where our story takes a seriously dark turn. These words were actually spoken by a deeply disturbed young girl in Delhi's Janakpuri neighborhood during Gaurav's very last case. She hadn't slept for days, she was speaking in this totally altered, unnatural voice, but the crazy thing is, the moment Gaurav walked into a room, she just went dead silent. She looked right at him, somehow knowing exactly who he was, and delivered this terrifying warning. It was basically a promise that something supernatural was going to follow him home.
And honestly, that leads us right to the central question of this whole explainer. Just days after hearing that warning, on July 7, 2016, Gaurav was found lifeless on his bathroom floor. The authorities? Completely baffled. His family was shattered. So you have to ask yourself, how does a man so deeply rooted in science, someone who started out as a completely rational, atheistic commercial pilot, meet such a dark, unexplainable end? Especially with this strange, dark, thread-like mark wrapped right around his neck.
To understand exactly how we got to that bathroom floor, we gotta go back. Section 1. Skeptic turned investigator. Early life.
So Gaurav was definitely not born a ghost hunter. He was born in Patna, Bihar back in 1984. His dad was a bank manager, which meant they moved around quite a bit. He was a curious, super creative kid. In 2000, he even tried his hand at acting. He popped up in movies like 16 December. But, the film industry just wasn't really his thing. So seeking a much more stable, technical career, he actually packed up and moved to Florida in 2006 to train as a commercial pilot. At this point, he was a total skeptic, just an atheist trying to build a normal, everyday life. But fast forward a bit, and he eventually becomes an ordained minister in metaphysics. So, what in the world caused this massive pivot?
Well, it started with this. Footsteps. Whispers. A little girl standing in the corner of the room. While he was studying out in Florida, Gaurav and his classmates moved into this apartment that just completely defied all logic. They started experiencing impossible textbook poltergeist activity. We're talking disembodied voices whispering right next to their ears, the literal apparition of a young girl just standing there in the shadows.
Now, when this Florida incident happened, Gaurav's reaction tells you everything you need to know about him. His roommates, completely terrified, as you would be. They packed their bags and fled, one by one. But Gaurav, he actually stayed, alone. His deeply inquisitive, scientific nature just wouldn't let him run away from it. He needed logical answers. So he actually started studying humanistic sciences and metaphysics right alongside his aviation studies. In this incredible display of focus, he earned his commercial pilot license at the exact same time he was officially ordained as a minister of metaphysics. That ordination is what officially granted him the authority to investigate the supernatural.
This newfound obsession quickly outgrew that Florida apartment, though. Section 2. International Ghost Hunts. Global Investigations.
He ended up joining paranormal teams all across the US and Australia, conducting over 80 different investigations. And this is where he began encountering some truly chilling phenomena. Take the Adelaide Arcade case in Australia, for example. It's an 1885 mall said to be haunted by a former watchman who died this really gruesome death in the machinery. Gaurav and his team went in, and then, just total silence. 3 completely fresh sets of camera batteries were completely drained of power in literally 15 minutes. Now, in the paranormal field, it's widely believed that entities actually draw on nearby electrical sources to manifest themselves, so they were pulling the energy right out of his equipment.
The really crucial point here is that Gaurav wasn't just standing back and observing. He was actively pushing the boundaries. He operated on this core belief that knowledge cancels fear. And to prove this, he designed the Royal Adelaide Morgue experiment. Get this hospital had treated and lost over 10,000 psychiatric patients. And Gaurav actually volunteered to literally slide into one of the enclosed morgue drawers, the ones used to store bodies, and just remain there, completely isolated in the pitch black, all just to record electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs.
Crazy, right? Inside that drawer, Gaurav actually felt remarkably calm. He was even making jokes out loud to whatever might be listening in there. To his own human ears, there was absolutely nothing but dead silence in that morgue tray. But when he got out and played back his audio recorder, it had actually picked up 2 highly distinct, utterly chilling voices. One was pleading, "Help me." And then a second, much darker voice replied, "Do you think they can help you? Let's go."
Having really proven his methods abroad, Gaurav realized his true calling was actually back home. Section 3. India's Most Haunted, the IPS Era.
In 2009, he moved back and founded the Indian Paranormal Society. And the sources point out a very disturbing shift here. The cases in India were drastically darker. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale and terror of the work he was doing. First up, Mukesh Mills in Mumbai. This is an old textile mill where hundreds of people actually burned alive back in 1982. Gaurav went in there with a news crew using these shadow detection dolls that audibly reacted whenever he commanded the spirits to step forward. Then there's Kuldara village, a place cursed by villagers who were fleeing an oppressive ruler. Gaurav actually brought contestants there for an MTV reality show, and it ended in total disaster. Contestants were literally paralyzed by fear, totally unable to breathe, and one girl even went missing for hours, eventually found unconscious miles away. Finally, Karkaduma Court, the site of a brutal murder. Computers turning themselves on at 1 a.m., case files being physically thrown across the room.
The Karkaduma case actually holds one of the most terrifying anecdotes in all of Gaurav's files. While he was setting up cameras, he interviewed this security guard named Tyagi. Tyagi recounted a night where he heard typing coming from the empty computer lab. He walked in, expecting to see someone, and found a lawyer sitting at a desk. But when the lawyer turned around, he had no face. It was just this terrifying black void. The entity instantly vanished. Now here's the kicker. The very next day, when Gaurav checked the security footage, Tyagi wasn't on it. Why? Because Tyagi hadn't even come to work. He'd actually been found dead in his own home.
Which brings us to a pretty devastating realization about Gaurav's methods. And it's tied to this concept known as metaphysical connection. It's basically a theory that states when you successfully open a channel of communication with supernatural entities, you risk those negative energies attaching themselves to your own human soul. Essentially, you carry a piece of that darkness around with you.
Let's look at how this builds up, because this metaphysical toll, it compounded incredibly quickly. The sheer number of investigations he took on was staggering. 6,000. That is how many ghost investigations Gaurav Tiwari conducted in his lifetime. 6,000 times he willingly walked into the dark. 6,000 times he opened that channel. His team members even started noting that his health was visibly deteriorating. He kept complaining of this heavy, invisible weight pressing down on his chest, a weight that just grew worse with every single case.
And that brings us to the harrowing final chapter of this explainer, Section 4, the fatal last case, the Janak-Puri case. Despite feeling incredibly weak at this point, Gaurav took a call about a girl in Janak-Puri, Delhi, and her symptoms were horrific. She wasn't sleeping at all. Her voice had completely changed. She was literally banging her head against doors. At one point, she even walked into her parents' bedroom while they slept, just holding a massive knife. Her parents were completely terrified. But honestly, the most chilling detail? When Gaurav walked in, she instantly knew his name, and she knew exactly how many entities he carried with him.
Even after all his cameras completely malfunctioned with these massive flashes of light, and even after Gaurav briefly lost consciousness right there in the room, he still did what he always did. His standard sign-off at the end of an investigation was always, "If you are here, come with me. Leave this place." It was an incredibly selfless, yet dangerously sacrificial act. He was intentionally drawing the negative energy away from the victim and bringing it right onto himself.
After he left that house, Gaurav fell completely silent. He arrived home at 1:30 in the morning, and this man, a guy who literally willingly locked himself in haunted morgue drawers and confronted thousands of spirits, broke down in tears to his wife. He looked right at her, completely stripped of his usual bravery, and just said, "They are with me. They are looking at me. I am scared."
The very next morning, July 7th, 2016, Gaurav went into his bathroom to take a shower. 45 minutes later, his family heard a loud thud. They broke down the door and found him lifeless. As an explainer, we really have to look objectively at the two massive theories surrounding his death here. On the mundane, logical side, the police noted severe financial stress and marital friction. His wife, understandably, hated his dangerous, low-paying job, and so they tentatively ruled it a suicide by asphyxiation. But on the supernatural side, there was a very fine, dark, thread-like mark around his neck that nobody could explain. Add to that the Janak-Puri girl's chilling warning just the day before, and the unimaginable metaphysical toll of 6,000 cases. Ultimately, the police closed the file. But for those who followed his incredible career, the case remains wide open. Gaurav Tiwari spent his entire life trying to bring light to the darkest corners of the human experience. But in the end, did the darkness finally swallow him whole? Or was the psychological burden of trying to help thousands of people simply too much for one man to bear? I want you to really think about this final question. What do you believe truly happened in that bathroom? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and just remember, sometimes knowledge doesn't cancel fear. Sometimes it invites it right in.